Thank you for tuning in to Live the Grace Life podcast. Today's guest is Dr. William Myles of the Albany Housing Authority. Welcome to Live the Grace Life. My name is Corey Holman. I am your host. Today we have Dr. William Myles, the President and CEO of Albany Housing Authority in Albany, Georgia. Dr. Myles has been serving at the Albany Housing Authority since 2018, so we are so honored to have you here today.
Thank you for having me, man. Glad to be here.
So we've been seeing some of the awesome things that you all have been doing with the expansion I saw on the news, the Jeanette Henderson Scholarship. So let's talk about, we'll get into all those things, but we want to hear about Dr. William Myles. What was your journey to the Albany Housing Authority?
Wow. Again, appreciate it, man. Thank you again for having me. My journey has been a quite interesting one, right? So I was literally born and raised in public housing, originally from Meridian, Mississippi. Born and raised in public housing, in which I literally lived in the worst development in Meridian, Mississippi. So it was considered the most dangerous one, the one you don't go to if you don't know anyone, things such of that nature. And of course, with a reputation like that, you know, there comes a certain stigma with the individuals living in the development. And so I grew up, you know, in public housing, man, in an environment to where most people would consider horrendous and considered substandard to some degree. But for me, it was life. For me, it was my community. For me, it was my neighborhood. And so just growing up in that environment, man, seeing how people lived, you know, basically in their survival mode, man, it just kind of put something within me. Now, never did I ever imagine working in public housing, but just being able to kind of grow up in public housing, man. And what I ended up doing was just trying to keep myself busy because my mom was a single mom of two kids. I'm the youngest. My brother, he's 5 years older than me. And again, she just want to make sure that her baby boys was okay. You know, so mama gonna do what mama needs to do to ensure that. And mom didn't have a college degree. She didn't have formal education, anything like that. She was just basically trying to make sure life was good for us to the best of her ability. But she made sure that we was always involved in something extracurricular and things such of that nature. And for me, I was fortunate to grow up through Boys and Girls Club. So Boys and Girls Club came around when I was about the age of 12. And I was fortunate for Boys and Girls Club because it kind of brought a lot of structure to me and to my life and things such of that nature, man. And so, and back then, that's when Boys and Girls Club was literally located in your development. So I can literally leave out my door and walk to the Boys and Girls Club. And I never forget the current CEO of Boys and Girls Club in Mississippi, in Meridian now, who is Ricky Hood. He was the one I grew up under. So he served as some sort of a mentor for me because he stepped in, you know, and served as that role model to some degree. And I followed him everywhere he went. He took me to meetings. He took me to places I never imagined, right? He was going to Civic Club meetings when I didn't understand what that was. He was going to partnership meetings in which when I didn't know what that was. I was just always a tag along to the point to a lot of people thought that he was my dad because we always were together, right? And so coming up through that particular environment, man, I learned a work ethic. I learned a lot of different things. And lo and behold, I was able to go off to school, undergrad school, to the University of Southern Mississippi, where I received a Bachelor of Arts in Advertising. But I received the Boys and Girls Club Scholarship, received NAACP Scholarship, things such of that nature. And I also received a band scholarship. But my first year, I went to MVSU, Mississippi Valley State University, so I got my HBCU experience, right? Delta Devils.
The plug.
Yeah. And so before I transferred to the University of Southern Mississippi, but I still had that opportunity to come back to Boys and Girls Club, worked interned there, then worked as their program director, things such of that nature before I, you know, continued to move forward, man. And still kind of always had a sense of community. I always had a sense of wanting to give back because I was always taught, you know, when you take something out, you ought to put something back.
Yeah.
So I never strayed from that, man. I always wanted to do the best I could to help somebody else and to empower them. And so along my journey, man, I started a gospel choir.
Okay.
Many people don't
Wait,
know
hold
that.
up now. The gospel choir. I didn't get that one now. I didn't get that in my notes.
Yeah, I don't know why I'm mentioning this, right? But we talking
No,
about
it's
the
all
church.
right. It's
So,
all right.
Yeah.
So, did you sing? What did you do?
Let's put it on the record, right? So technically, no, I was the Kirk Franklin, right?
Watch out.
Yeah.
Watch out.
So, and it was funny, right? So quick backstory on that. So coming up through Boys and Girls Club, I was in the band. I also played baseball, basketball, but I was in the band. Drum captain, my senior year. Director, Mr. Ricky Hood said, "Hey, man, we need a choir." And I'm looking at him like, "Why are you telling me?" You know what I mean? He said, "Man, we need a choir. I think you can do it. I really want this to happen."
Yeah.
Cool. All right. So I went to my neighborhood where I live, and we tried to put a choir together. It was 3 people, and out of the 3, 2 of them were sisters. And so they started singing. I was like, "Okay, this sounds great. You know, Mr. Hood, here's your choir." You know,
wow.
I had no clue. And he was like, "No, we need to keep it rolling." And somebody else at the time, his name was Coach, we call him Coach Sharp. He was kind of facilitating as well, but then he dropped out. And so what I did, I said, "Okay, look, let me try a different route." So I went to the high school, right, and I put out a flyer, put an announcement. Anybody want to sing in the choir? We having choir rehearsal Saturday, right? 10 people showed up to this choir. So what we did was, right, I didn't know music. I didn't know anything about singing, nothing, zero. I knew Bible,
Yeah.
right, because I grew up in the church. That was my foundation, right? So what I did was I would have Bible study before every choir rehearsal. All right. Once we did Bible study, they said, "Okay, now it's time to sing." I'm like, "Okay, good. Let's go in the sanctuary and we sing." I would sit in the pew and I would watch them, and they looking at me like, "What's next?" I'm like, "I already know." Do what you do. And fortunately, we had a director and a musician that came out. So I allowed them to do whatever they needed to do for this choir. And so we did this for a long time. And then eventually I said, "Well, God, look, if this is something you're wanting me to do and calling me to do, I need to be equipped to do this."
So how did we get from just being successful in a gospel career and then going to public housing authority? How did we transition there?
Okay, well, during that time frame, right? So I, after numerous attempts, I was finally able to get a job at the Meridian Housing Authority.
Okay.
Right? Because again, being from that community, people knew me or whatnot. But I started working at the Boys and Girls Club, transitioned somewhere else, and then finally had the opportunity to come to the Meridian Housing Authority. So during all of that, during my music ministry phase, I never quit my day job.
Yeah.
You know, that's word to the wise.
Did y'all catch that? Did y'all catch that? He just dropped a nugget there.
Yeah, don't quit your day job, right? And so coming up through the Meridian Housing Authority gave me an opportunity to get more into the neighborhood that I came from and other neighborhoods that was, equal to mine. And so what I did was I literally started in a position they called community liaison, which I think was a grant funded program for 1 year. I think HUD did it. And then after that 1 year, you're done.
Yeah.
But literally they decided to keep me on. And so the funny thing about it, man, I was always in the community and supportive services department. That's the hands-on piece to when you interacting with people.
Yeah.
And so I went from doing that to a family self-sufficiency coordinator to where we helping residents connect with jobs, earn money, save money, doing financial literacy, presenting homeownership opportunities, all of those things. And I went from that to a neighborhood network center director, in which we had a computer lab, integrating technology, all of that kind of good stuff. And all at the same time, I'm doing this music thing. Okay. Making it happen. Yeah. And it became such a merging of platforms that the people that I was helping on this side to connect with jobs were now being ministered to through song.
Yeah.
And I became a recognizable figure because, hey, that's the guy that introduced the computer classes to me. Hey, that's the guy that's da-da-da. And then also when I was an advocate, street ball player, right? So I would always play basketball.
Yeah.
I would go to the hood, and that's just where I played ball,
Yeah.
right? I was accustomed to it. And so The amazing thing about it, man, is that when I would do my concert was on the line of stuff that people unheard of. So I was the Ty Tribbett and Kirk Franklin of Meridian before Ty Tribbett.
Yeah.
And so the stuff that I was doing, it had never been done, never been seen in that area.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it wasn't accepted, it wasn't received. But I just kept thinking about the people I was trying to reach.
Exactly.
And the people I was trying to reach couldn't necessarily connect to Amazing Grace. You know, at least in that particular format. Right? So I had to do it a different way. And when I tell you, when we ministered in concert, man, every concert was filled to capacity, no matter what the size was. You know what I mean? And we had a lot of people that was coming off the street, coming in jeans, t-shirt, coming in tank tops, whatever, because it was just like, I got to see what this dude is up to. Yeah. I got to figure it out. And so at the beginning of each concert, man, we coming out, we hitting hard. You know what I mean? We coming out, one concert, man, we came out with the Beyonce instrumental. So they immediately, wow, wow, is Beyonce coming out the back? I mean, what's happening? You know what I mean? And so I had everybody's attention, and I mean, we were just going, we like 10, 15 minutes in, and people still standing there, wow. Oh, wow. And then we transitioned, man, and it just slowly, because they don't understand what's happening, and we slowly transitioned into worship, slowly transitioned into altar call. And man, it impacted their lives so greatly, man. We would have altar calls, man, it was never a surprise to have a minimum of 100 young people at the altar. Wow. Every concert. You know what I mean? We did a concert at a theater that held 2,000 people. We had 2,000 people, and out of 2,000 people, at least 200 to 300 people came to the altar. We had people coming from Atlanta, and the line wrapped around the building. Yeah. And it was like, are we at the right place? Because we see this line. You said the concert started at 6. It's literally 4:30, and the line is wrapped around the building. Are we at the right place? I said, yeah, that's the place. Wow, you have a great deal of support. I said, yeah, growing up in the community and being who I am, that's what it was. So doing that ministry, coming up through public housing, all of that, and it just connected. And so now, being in the community supported service in Meridian Housing Authority, I was able to go and to those communities and talk to those people and be able to relate because they knew me. So it wasn't us against them. Yeah. It's like he's one of us. Exactly. And so I was able to impart in them, hey, this is what I did. This is how I did. You guys can do it. And so it just clicked. This is actually my ministry.
So let me pause you right there, because we're going to get into that in a second. So I want to address something that Dr. Myles was talking about. Obviously, you know, Grace Life is a Christian company. And one of the things that we're very big on pushing on is activating your ministry in the marketplace. That may not be something that we publicly say out in the public, but I'm saying it now. But I'm saying it to the degree that we have so much that we can do besides being inside of the walls of a church. Yes. That really our ministry is supposed to be out in the marketplace. Yes. And so our particular ministry, in terms of mine, may be in marketing or other things that I'm doing, but you use the power of gospel music to serve your community. So before you get into what you have planned that you were getting ready to share, are you still doing any of this music, or are you just kind of put it on pause right now? Because I know you got a busy schedule, but 100 souls, I mean, I'm like, wow.
So and I get to it, but I later transitioned to Philly. And once I transitioned to Philly, I started doing it a little bit because I actually recorded an album. Oh. I never released it. It's on my phone now. Never released it, never did anything with it. So I have a full-fledged album that I did record. But then the ministry of public housing got great. Yeah. And so I just kind of focused on that. And even when I came here, that's kind of where I did and kind of focused on because I wanted to get a good footing. Gotcha. Once I got here, before I start to kind of move forward with anything musically. But I have been in discussions with people in regards to that. They want to kind of move forward with stuff. They talked to me about several things. Always open to it. Gotcha. Always open to it. Yep. All right. So
Ty Tribbett, Kirk Franklin,
yeah, man.
Dr. William Myles.
Yeah,
So it was William Myles and what now? What was it?
YPOP, Young People of Praise.
Okay. We're going into the Albany Housing Authority portion of your story. So let's hear about that. So you were basically saying you were denied for a job here?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Originally, I applied Position came available, and again, I always want to be in a position to where I can kind of assist at the top level. And so a position came available here. I applied, submitted my resume, application, things such of that nature, and even went through the interview process. And then lo and behold, I received the rejection letter in the mail, and I kept it. To this day, I just kept. I don't know why I held on.
I was going to ask you that. Why did you keep it?
That's a good question. I have no idea.
Because I would have thrown it away. Like, okay, Lord, I'm moving on to the next thing.
Right. But I held on to it, right? And so literally, I just kept it. And so I think maybe a month and a half, maybe even 2 months later, I got a call back again and said, well, we're interested in, interviewing you again, or putting your name back in the hat to be the CEO. I was like, but I got the letter. You know what I mean? It was like, no, we understand that, but we want to give you another opportunity if that's something you want to do. And we need to know now, because I guess the committee was meeting in a couple days. I said, okay, well, fine, great. Put my name back in the hat. I'm open to it. I said, okay. And so literally, once that process took place, they called me in for another interview. And I was fortunate enough, literally, once I came here for the interview, by the time I left the office and made it to the stoplight on Jefferson, they called me back and literally offered me the position.
Wow. Wow. So that was in 2018.
2018.
2018.
Yes, sir.
So there are some portions of your story we really want to get to. Sure. So one of the things that we learned is that you are the first in your family to ever receive a college degree, but you didn't stop there. You got a doctorate too.
Absolutely.
So how does that feel?
It feels awesome, man. And one of the things about it is, again, you should never stop learning. You should always put yourself in position to learn, to become empowered, and to position yourself for things that's greater, right? You always should be looking toward what's next, what's the future may hold, and how can you better your community and at what capacity. And so for me, and especially understanding my history, and understanding my family dynamics, knowing that, if, my immediate family didn't have any sort of formal education, I want to go to the highest level. Yeah. That's my contribution to them. I want to be able to do that. But that's my contribution to the community. I want people to see African Americans doing well, because a lot of times we do, man. We celebrate our entertainers. We celebrate our athletes, man. But the people that are not quote unquote famous for their particular work, man, gets overlooked. But these are the people that makes the greater contribution to society. And so I wanted to be that guy that kind of hold that mantle to kind of portray that to individuals, especially our young people, man. Because again, we're trying to figure out why everybody want to rap, why everybody feel as if basketball or football is the way out. That's all a lot of times in our African American communities, that's all we show our kids. You know what I mean? And we need to show them better. We need to show them more. So everywhere since Meridian, Mississippi, now, because this is one thing I also left out too, growing up in Meridian, Mississippi, we just didn't have a whole lot. Yeah. I would start off school with 2 pair of pants, 2 shirts, and that would be it for the year. Yeah. You know what I mean? I would have to wear my cousin's clothes. You know what I mean? And so it was just a hard life, but to me, it was a way of life. You know what I mean? So I didn't think anything about it. I just tell people all the time, every household had 2 TVs, right? The big TV to hold the little TV. Yeah. You know what I mean? That's just how we
one of those box sets.
Right. Absolutely. Everybody dined at the stove and did the bologna and fried it till it bubbled up in the middle, and then
and it was good.
That's just what it was. I didn't see that as poverty. When we had the block cheese and the butter and that and the different color money. When you pull out that paper, they got cards now, the EBT, but back then we had to pay. Mama used to give me the brown. I didn't make it up to the purple. So, but that's how we live. Yeah. So I never thought anything about it. You know what I mean? So when I became of age and I could do better, man, and I knew better, that's what I wanted to portray. So every day when because I've always wanted to be that professional. So that's what I did, right? So once I became a professional, I always looked a certain way. I always dressed a certain way. And people said, man, he's so bougie, and why he dressed like this, why he looked like, man, you always got to come a certain way. Absolutely, I do.
It's a standard. It's a standard.
I say it all day, every day. It's a standard.
Yes.
I have standards, and not only that, we gotta have our kids seeing more than just one type of a black male, right? They gotta see people like us in suits, in ties, carrying ourselves a certain way, being articulate, being able to handle ourselves in certain situations, so they can have something else to aspire to. Exactly. Not saying that what you're doing is wrong. I'm just saying it's different, and we need to give our kids choices. And so obtaining that doctorate is another thing that I wanted to do. If I can do it coming out of the mud, so to speak, I know you can do it. There was nothing so unique and so special about me. I do believe God had his hands on me. I do believe God had a special purpose for me. But guess what? He got one for you too. You know what I mean? The gift is given without repentance, right? And so I've always been taught that, the gift will work if you work it. You know what I mean? So how do you feel about you? It's obvious what Christ feels about you, right? Because he died for you. So how much do you love you? How do you feel about you? You know what I mean? Because at the end of the day, it got to go beyond just his love. You got to work. And that's it. Faith without work. So definitely, man, it becomes an honor, man, for me to be able to achieve success like that. And right now, I'm even working to get my dissertation and to get it published. Because that'll be the next step for me as well. But it's just an honor, man, because again, I just think God, which just blessed me tremendously, and I want to be able to kind of display and communicate and empower others, man, and let them know they can do it too.
We're going to move on to the next thing. I know that we kind of want to talk about your vision for the Albany Housing Authority,
Sure.
And so let's talk about that.
So ultimately, what I want to do, I want to use housing as a platform to impact and change lives.
Okay.
Plain and simple, right? But with doing that, we got to be a catalyst for change, for transformational change, in every aspect of the life of people's lives. So housing stabilizes family.
Okay.
Right? So once people have a sense of stability, now other things can kind of reverberate with them. So what I want to do, my vision is to establish self-sustaining communities to where people can literally have ownership in their communities. They can be self-sustaining. They can have literally employment opportunities, economic development right there in their particular community, in which it can be self-sustaining without HUD-assisted funding, right? So what does that mean? That means educating people, right? So we've established educational opportunities for our residents. We have GED class for those that may need it. We just started the Jeanette Henderson Scholarship Fund for those that want an advanced degree or any sort of certification, whatever the case may be. We want to assist in funding that, right? We're also establishing entrepreneurship opportunities for our residents, because one of the things we want to do, as I stated, is provide those opportunities where you can have ownership, right? And you can have a legacy, but that's something that we believe that you can have. And within this self-sustaining community, how awesome would it be, right, to have a mixed income development to where you have low income housing, you have market rate housing, you have senior housing, and you have home ownership opportunities right there in one community with your park, with a community center, right, that have literally a computer lab, that have literally medical services, that have IT services, that literally have incubators there for entrepreneurs, and literally having residents creating a HOA, and they're literally owning their particular community. So they either having some sort of ownership agreement in place to where they live, they're literally owning it, and this is what it means. They put in some sweat equity in terms of that, or they put up some capital in terms of that, but it becomes their particular development, and as a part of that, they begin to opening stores in their particular community, from grocery stores to shopping, retail, to coffee shop, literally in their particular community, in which those are stores that are birthed out of the business incubator. that's already there.
Yeah.
And so now that dollar becomes circulating right there in that particular community. They have ownership of it, right? They dictate what's happening and what's going on. They have something that they can leave and pass on to their particular family. And now what happens is you become even stronger politically now, because now money is power.
Exactly.
Power is influence.
It is.
So now you have something to say at these city council meetings. Now they can't just overlook you. Now they can't just come and see you when it's time to vote.
Exactly.
Your vote can't be bought, with a sandwich. It can't be bought, with sodas and these nice events the day before the election. No, you get to come to you become respected in regards to, look at what they're doing. Look at how that dollar is flowing. Look at how they're moving in that particular community. We can't do anything but respect that. And so eventually, that's what I want to do. And that's my vision in collaboration with the city, because I definitely want to partner with the city to kind of make that happen. And I think that's feasible. But it got to be something that, again, it's going to take a lot of work, a lot of commitment, but definitely something, man, that can happen.
So moving to ownership, that's what it sounds like.
Absolutely.
And that's a powerful statement here.
Absolutely.
Being in Albany, and we know it's been rated as one of the poorest cities.
Yes.
And these are the type of things that can help push our city forward.
Absolutely.
And empowering people to become owners, to leave, like you said, leaving a legacy. Those are the things that we have the opportunity, I believe, in this season and in these few years to really do that.
Yes.
There's so many opportunities even coming down through our current administration, all these type of things. There's so many things that we could do to help our community rise from the ashes of poverty. So we just talked about empowering people to become owners, to leaving a legacy. So I want to talk about, what are some of the myths, having that experience, living in public housing. Tell us about that.
Absolutely. So it's a couple big major myths, man, that has been bothering me for some time. And another reason why I want to change the narrative. One is that people that live in public housing are lazy. And two, people that live in public housing don't want better.
Yeah.
And as far as from the truth, right? If you go right now, and what I normally do is say, okay, if that's the case, just take a ride with me between the hours of 8 and 5, right? And let's go through a development and notice the cars parked out there, all right? And then at 5:30, let's take another ride and let's notice the cars, right? Typically, what you're going to see between the hours of 8 and 5, not many cars there.
Yeah.
5:30 on parking lots going to be filled. Why? People are at work. People are working. They want to work. Everybody want a decent quality of life. Everybody want a safe place to live. That's everybody's desire. Everybody's not lazy. People living in public housing, they're there based on their circumstance and their situation. You got to understand that a lot of times education becomes key into the type of position and jobs that you receive. And a lot of time, unfortunately, people living in public housing don't have advanced degrees. Some do, some don't. And a lot of times that kind of put them in a situation where they're not earning as much as they could, so they got to live in public housing. But you got to understand and know that people living in public housing have 2 and 3 jobs, trying to make sure that they eat and their kids eat as well. So they're not lazy. They are working. And yes, they do. They want more. They want better. It's just having access to better, having access to information, having access to opportunities. That's far and few between. When people are looking for new employees to kind of work in a law office or work in an accounting office, they're not coming to the public housing and looking for residents and da-da-da. They're going elsewhere. They looking for people in other particular areas. But people in public housing want the same thing as anybody else. The only reason why they're there a lot of times is based on their particular circumstance and their income. Low income does not equate to uneducated. Low income does not equate to subpar living. It does not equate to individuals not being as smart or equal to someone else. It just means simply that our income is not where it needs to be for us to afford a home or market rate units. That's it. And so we have to understand that and not keep, lumping people in that particular thing, because again, I always say quit calling it the projects. It's not the projects. It's a low income housing community. Once people start living in it, it's no longer a project. It became a building project for the sake of construction and development. Once people moved in, it's no longer a project. All apartments were projects, but when people moved in them, it became communities. So that's what we need to do. We have to change that mindset and that way of thinking.
Okay. So this seems like a very good opportunity. If you're watching this and you're looking to support, the Albany Housing Authority, whether you're a church, or your organization, you're a business, I would look into reaching out to the Albany Housing Authority to get behind their vision. I have one last question, and we're going to wrap up this podcast with Dr. Myles. So if you could help someone, maybe someone that has the same story as you, what would you share with them?
Wow. Number one, I would say trust in yourself and trust in the gift that God has given you. No matter what it looks like or seems like, God is always making it for your good. I always tell people, even though it don't feel good, He's working it for you good. And we have to understand that without the trials and tribulation, there's no victory. We can't expect stuff to be easy. You can't expect stuff to be in the form of which that make us feel comfortable. Sometimes our greatest success comes from our uncomfortability. And so grasping that and understanding that can kind of really take us a long way. So I would say, keep the faith in God, believe in yourself, knowing that the sky's the limit in a real and tangible way. Because again, remember, it's always bigger than just you. A lot of us have some other people dependent on us to make good decisions, whether it's your family, whether it's your kids. Somebody is basing their life off a decision that you're going to make. You can make the decision if you trust yourself and believe in the wisdom that God has given you.
Dr. Myles, we are so honored to have you here on Live the Grace Life podcast. He is one of our local inspirations for the month of February. And so, again, we're honored to have you here. Thank you for being a part of the podcast today.
Thank you.
We pray that this blessed you today. Stay tuned for the next podcast. Thank you for tuning in to Live the Grace Life podcast. This is brought to you by Grace Life Marketing.